Right, good morning everyone, and I hope you've had a good half term and that you are ready to get going for another lesson today. So in the last few lessons before our half term, we were talking about file handling and about reading and writing files. Today's lesson, we're going to be looking at specifically how to edit files. So in this instance, it's talking about updating or overwriting a text file, deleting a line in a text file, inserting something at a specific line number, and appending to a text file. Now, this lesson is going to be another lesson where I teach you a few concepts, and then I expect you to go off and do those things. So I'll teach you a few different things, and then I'll give you a task to do, and I expect to see you send them to me via Show My Homework. I've got some really good responses from that before the half term, so I'm hoping we can keep that up and that I can see some really good ideas from you. So let's go through some of these concepts: the updating, overwriting, deleting a line, inserting something, and appending to a text file. Okay, so when we're talking about updating or overwriting a text file, the first thing we're going to need is some information to update our text file with. So we've got our text file here: 001 Sam Smith from Exeter, 002 Dave Arnold from Exmouth, 003 James Jones from Sidmouth. Okay, and so we've got some information. We've got first name, surname, and town. So asking for those three things. We can then open our file like we've done in the past and read that data into a list like we've done in the past. So remembering to open with your name of your file with your extension at the end. Generally, we're talking about text files, so that's what we're talking about here. And then we want this in read mode at first so that we can actually read all of the different lines that are already in there, so that when we go to edit it, it won't that we are using the data that's already existing rather than overwriting completely and not putting anything in. Okay, so we're reading it as my file. That's the name of the file. We're going to read from that file, and we're going to split those lines so that it is in a list, and we're saving that list as data. And then, as we've experienced before, we can say the first item in data. Remember that we count from 0 with lists, so first is actually, this is 0th, and this is first, and this is second, or this is at index 0, index 1, index 2. So data at index 1 is equal to 002, going to leave a space. Whatever the users put in as their first name, leave a space, and their surname, leave a space, and the town. Okay, so in there should come out as something like that. Okay, so, and then it will, then what we're doing is opening the text file in write mode. All we're doing here is changing that value, that but only in the list. We're not saving it, we haven't saved it back into the file yet, so that's what this bit's for. So we're opening the file in write mode. We can call it my file again, we can call it whatever we want, and we're going to write those lines of data to that file. So I'm just going to open that in Thonny just so that you can see what we're talking about, just to make sure we kind of gotten our head through it. I'm going to run through it, debug it, so we can go through it line by line. So it's asking for first name, so Jenny, and then surname, again, Jones. Don't know who this person is. What is your town? I'll say Bury. And then, so it's going into this bit here with open. Oh, sorry, I've just pressed F5 instead of, let me run it again. instead of F7. So Jenny Jones Berry, and then I'm going to go into here. I'm opening my example2.txt in read mode. So that's creating the file. So it's called all of that funny thing, but all you need to know is that all of that information that was there for a moment has been saved in my file. In fact, if I open up to see the variables, you can see my file has been saved as, I put Joan instead of Jones, but you get the idea. So my file is the file itself. So if you were to try and print out my file, it would come up with all this gobbledygook. You don't want that. You want to read the file, myfile.read. So again, going into this, my file is this funny thing here. Myfile.read gives us this. So 001 Sam Smith Exeter. Don't forget n, \n means new line. 002, etc., etc. So now, if we split the lines, you can see that this turned into a list with our brackets, our speech marks, and commas between each bit. So then data 1 becomes 002 plus Jenny, which will do 002 Jenny, plus space, plus Joan, plus space, plus Berry. Okay, so Jenny Joan Berry. Okay, and then it's going to open. So we've closed the file up here from write mode because it's no longer in this level of indentation, is it? So once you get to this level of indentation, that file is no longer open. Okay, so we're going to open it back up again, but in write mode this time because we want to write data to it, obviously. Now again, we've got our file. My file is a slightly different file this time, or it's the same file, but it looks slightly different. It's in write mode this time. My file, which is that, and it's going to write these lines of data, which is going to be your 001 Sam, etc. The data has been overwritten here with this. Okay, so if I go into this one here, you'll see 002 Jenny Joan Berry. Yeah, so hopefully, and it will return nothing. Now you can't see anything happening here because it's just written to a file. So let's see if we can find that file. This was example2.txt that we're looking for. So, oh, that's interesting. That didn't do what I expected it to do. So I'm going to have to check something out here. But, so what actually happened here is it didn't include the new lines. Now, that's something I need to consider when writing these files up. So I need to, I'm sure write lines is supposed to give you something with new lines each time. So I will have to look into why it was doing that. I will look back into figuring out why that did it that way in just a moment. But at the moment, you still kind of get the idea that you just overwrite the data and then you write the lines in. Okay? So that's about updating and overwriting a text file. You can see, I mean, if we wanted to, we could type in the \n ourselves into these lines, but I would have expected it to have changed it itself. Okay, let's move on. So that's the idea of updating or overwriting a text file. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is deleting a line in a text file. And so, so it might be that I used .write, and it should have been .write instead of .write lines. I don't know why I wrote .write lines. Let's see if that works. Let me go back to it. .write data. Let's run it quickly. First name, Bob Smith, and then what is your town? Berry. Oh, it's because I need to resave this now because this was only one line, don't forget. So if I save it and then run it again, Bob, what was it? What did I say from before? Bob Smith from Berry. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh my goodness, there's something that I've done wrong there, and I need to work out what it is. And that's going to be the same problem with this one. Should really have tested these before I started running the lesson, but I just assumed they would work because I got them from someone else. Okay, so to delete, so the idea is still there that you're converting into a list. You're converting your data into a list, and then you are making that into a new idea. So there are other ways of converting into lists which don't remove the new lines. So that might be one of the reasons why this hasn't worked as well. Anyway, so line number becomes int input. Which line number would you like to delete? So it's asking the user which line number they want to delete. Now, remember, .pop is to get rid of a certain item. If you leave these brackets without anything in them, it will always delete the last item in the list. Whereas if you put something in the list in these brackets, then it will remove that particular item. Now, don't forget, because this is because lists run from index 0, we're looking at the index, not the line number. An index is one behind the line number. So the line number is what the user sees, so 1, 2, 3, and the index is what the computer sees, so 0, 1, 2. Okay, so that's why we've got line number -1 here. Okay, and then we are writing our data back into the file. Okay, now I can show you a different way of creating your file. Let me just find the yeah. So instead of .read.splitlines, you can use something called read lines. Now, before we used a concept called read line. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this. Before we used a concept called read line, and that just read the most recent line that you haven't read yet. So the first line if you haven't read a line yet, second line if you've already read one line before. So we can use read lines, and if we do it like that, let me just adjust this. Oops. Okay. Let's check this. Right lines. Okay, so I'm going to run this again, just checking this works. Jenny Jones from Berry. Oh, index out of range. Oh, it's because again it's not been saved. Maybe it has been saved. Let's just check, because I think the file keeps getting closed and opened in different places, so I need to just check it's the right version. Yeah, so that is the current version that we've got. Oh, I also need to make sure, if I'm doing it this way, to put in plus speech marks \n. Don't forget where the backslash is as well. Ooh, that needs to be on the line before. And if I move this a little bit, you can see that it's appeared over here. Okay. Now, index out of range. Hopefully that should work now. Data 1 lines. Yeah. I'm going to run it again because this should work. Bob Smith from Berry. There we go. So it's ran. Now you can't see the updated version until we close this and then open it again. So I need to open it again, and then you can see now Bob Smith from Berry. You might need to use read lines instead of the one we had before with the read.split lines. I will try and update the PowerPoints so that they make sense in terms of that. I was just trying to reduce the annoyance you'll get with all these /ns by teaching you it that way, but it turns out that I was making more annoyance for myself by trying to teach you it the other way. So where were we at? Deleting a line in a text file. We're going to do the same thing again with read lines, and this shouldn't make a difference in terms of how this will work, although I need to put write lines here. Let's try that again. Run it. Which line number would you like to delete? I'll delete number, so we're on example.txt. Let me open up what that will look like before, because otherwise you won't see what I'm talking about. This is example.txt. This actually says 001 Sam Smith Exeter. We've got the word hi in the middle here. That's from me testing it earlier with inserting something into the middle. So I'd actually like to get rid of this line. So we want to get rid of line 2 because we don't want that hi in the middle there. So I'm going to put in 2, which line, so it's gone through. It should have deleted that. I'm going to close it and open it again so that we can see again. So it's deleted that hi from the middle there. Okay. So don't forget, pop gets rid of an item in the list. If you've got something in your brackets, then it deletes that index. If you've not got something in the brackets, it will delete the last line in the list. And we've got our write lines and our read lines. Okay. The next one I want to talk about is the idea of inserting something at a specific line number. So this is where I did the test of all of this bit earlier. And that's interesting, actually, that this seems to have worked, the read.split line. So I will test this out just to make sure it still works. But we've just, so it's, oh, we're on example 2 now. Let me just adjust it back to example because I know what that looks like at the moment. So example looks like this. Sam Smith, Exeter, Dave Arnold, Exmouth, James Jones, Sidmouth. Let's close that for a minute. I'm going to go play. Ooh. What's happened here? Have I missed a bracket? Yes. No? Oh my goodness. This was working before. Input. There's 2 brackets there. 2 brackets at the end. 1 bracket, 1 bracket, 1 bracket. I'm trying to work out what the problem is because this was definitely working before. With open. Line 11 is the problem. So it's probably this over here. I'm missing this bracket here. So the bracket at the beginning, I'm missing a bracket at the end. So all this is something I need to talk you through as well. I missed a bracket here. That was my own silly mistake. So what is your first name? Bob. Bob Jones. And what is your town? Berry. Where do you want this inserted? So I want this to be, let's see. So at the moment we've already got 001, 002, 003. So let's say we want 4. Okay. Now, if I go into the file, if I close this one and then open it back up again, again, we've got the issue with the lines not doing what I expected them to do. So again, you might need to use the idea of, oh, and I forgot a space here as well. So a couple of things you'll need to do here. You'll need to adjust this to read lines. So I'll get rid of that. You need to add in a space, because otherwise it doesn't have that space in between, and you need \n. Okay, I will put all this back into the program for you, into the PowerPoint, and I'll re-upload the PowerPoint onto the tiny URL so that you can look back over everything. So what I do need to talk to you about here is this idea here. So this looks really confusing, but I'm going to go through it bit by bit. In fact, I think I've got a different, yeah, I've got another file I can show you to explain. So position becomes the input, pick a number, and we're going to change that to an integer. And then what we're going to do, just to show you how this works, string position zfill 3. Okay, we're going to print that value out. So zfill, what that does is it fills in with leading zeros. So that's what the Z means here. Okay, so if I run this, I pick a number, say 4, it will give me 004. If I run it again and I pick another number, 24, it will put a 0, just 1 0 at the beginning of it, because it recognizes that it wants 3 digits and it wants to fill in those leading zeros. So it's turning it into a string so that it can go, okay, I'm going to make that some zeros in there as well. Okay, so, and the position needs to be there to know where exactly it's going to be submitted, because in insert usually we just put, in fact what we could do is, I'm just going to put in to insert equals, and then all of that information is to be inserted, and then to insert, same idea here. Okay, so if I run this, let me just make sure that one's been saved. It hasn't, so let me just save that. Yeah. And play. What's your first name? Elizabeth Evans from Manchester. There we go. So where do you want it? You want it in, say, the 5th position. And then, so we go back into, open that up. And we've got, ooh, again, I didn't put in the \n there. So that's one of the issues that I've got there. But if I run that again and run it at, oops, I forgot to put in a first name. So let me just stop that. And then run it again. First name, Helen Mirren. Is that how you spell it? Helen Mirren. From Swansea. Where do you want it inserted? At item 7. You might have added in an extra thing there, but let's have a look. So we've got Helen Mirren from Swansea. Can you see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Now obviously that is at a weird position. That doesn't exist yet, but it's still in the right place. Okay, and now if I was to now go, okay, well I need a number 6 in there, so I'm going to do Gary Good from very, very bad at coming up with creative ideas here. I'm just going to say Berry again because I'm too and it's at value 6. So that was what it looked like before. If I close that and open it again, we've got Gary Good in Berry. Ooh, that's interesting. Should have been inserted in a particular position rather than just at the end. Let's test what's going on here. Ah, I know. It should be position -1, shouldn't it? Because I had forgotten about the difference between the index and the position itself. So again, I'll run it again. Harry Brown from Berry again, because I'm being boring. Where do you want it inserted? Value 6. And if I just go close that again and open it, yeah, so now it's in the 6th position because we have we did the position -1. I had forgotten about the -1. So again, I will update all of the code on the PowerPoint so that this is correct, so that you've got the correct data there. Okay, so talking about inserting something at a specific line number, let's move on to the last thing I want to talk about, which this is a little bit more straightforward. We don't have any of the other issues to deal with. So if we were to open example 2, it's quite a simple one, 0, 1, 2, 3. And again, we're asking the user for their information. What's your first name, surname, town? And it's going to open our example text document in append mode this time. So A means append, and append means just to add to the end of, okay? And we called it my file. Our line, or the information that we're going to put in, which I've called line, that's what I've called my variable, it's 004. I've put a space in there, plus first name, plus space, plus surname, plus space, plus town. So we've specifically told it that we want it at 004. And then we've got myfile.writelines line. Okay, so that should work. Let me just check. Let me get it open again. So appending. So running this again, we've got, oh no, that's example. We want example 2. So Sam Smith from Exeter, Bob Smith from Berry, James Jones from Sidmouth. And if we run this, what's your first name? Sally. Sally Smith from Berry. Okay, so now it looks like nothing's happened, but if we open up the text file again, again we've not got that \n in there because I forgot to make sure that was in there when I was writing this file. But Sally Smith from Berry, that is correct. So hopefully you kind of get an idea. I'm sorry about all of the complications with the changing of the files, but I will, as I say, update this PowerPoint to make sure it makes sense. But I've got some tasks for you. So first thing I want you to do is create a text file with some names and scores. So imagine it's a high score file from a game. So it looks something like this, perhaps, you probably don't even need a title, just put some names and some scores. And what you'll need to do, in fact, you might want to put the score first so that it's a bit easier to access. What you might want to do is tasks while the scores are not in any particular order. So if you put the score first, you'll be able to say, where is it? Where's the starts with? I'm sure we had one that said starts with. No? That's something I need to go through as well then. So update a particular user with a new score. So that's kind of basically going, you've gone, okay, if you've got a name there, what what is their new score. So you need to then utilize your idea of lists to be able to go, okay, find the line that includes this name, for example. Append a new score to the list. That should be fairly straightforward using this information here. Insert a new score into a particular position in the file. So that's where we use this one here. And then if you have your tasks in descending order, so from high to low, then it would be good if you could be able to insert a new user and score into the correct position based on its numerical value. So what you'll need to do is read the scores that are already in the list and then compare the score. So you'll need to say, for example, you're trying to add a score into, add the score of 11, right? So you'd look at the top value and go, is this value more than or equal to 11? If so, then go down. Is this value more than or equal to 11? If so, then go down. And then you're going to keep going down until you get to a value that is not more than or equal to 11, and you just put it beforehand. Okay? So I hope that kind of makes sense. I'm going to stick around for a little bit just so that I can let you know when the updated PowerPoint has been uploaded onto the shared drive. But otherwise, I'd like you to just kind of try and get on with that. Leave some questions in the chat or in Show My Homework if you want to try and get your head around things. Yeah, so I'll let you know when that's ready to go. I'll play some music in the meantime so that you're not just sat here with an empty and blank screen. But yeah, have a go at that. So I've literally just managed to update that, ready to go. So if you were to go onto the tiny URL and open up file handling 3 editing, you might need to refresh the page. Make sure that if it says last modified on there, that it was updated at 11:34 rather than yesterday, because that was when I originally uploaded this file. So just check that that's the right file. But you should be able to also look back through some of this and the lists idea to help you through these tasks. If there aren't any other questions, then I'm happy to leave it there. If you want to send me your work, what you've managed to get done into Show My Homework, I will see you hopefully next week. Bye.